You guys send me to your clients, and you just trust me not to screw things up for you when I get there. And you're probably wondering, like, what I do when I visit your clients. Like, what am I talking about? Like, am I going through a brochure and kind of telling them all the stuff we do? And it's actually just the opposite. The very first thing I do is a call. Right? Because I don't want to take their time with a real visit, and I don't want to take my time with a real visit if it's not a good fit. So the very first thing is we'll do a quick 15-minute call unless the prospect wants to talk longer. And the idea is to see kind of what their business is like, what they need, what they have already, what they have in place, and what kind of issues they're running into. A lot of times the issues are something that we wouldn't do. It's just something else. Maybe it's something that Jed's company, Provident, would do, for example. But because I'm on that call to solve the problem. Whether it's us, whether it's no one, just giving them some advice, kind of a direction to go, or introducing them to somebody that'll solve the problem. That's the very first thing. If there is something to talk about, if there's something that we could really help them with, we'll set up a meeting. And what do those meetings look like? Really, the meeting is mostly listening. I'll talk a little bit about what we do. Certainly answer any questions and talk about our technology. What kind of things we've done in the past for other similar clients. But mostly, I'm probing. I'm looking for what kind of problems these guys are in. For example, do they have a lot of different systems? Maybe they've got a bunch of online systems. They've got Salesforce and they've got QuickBooks Online. They've got all these things. And they're doing multiple data entry all the time. They get a new prospect, so they're entering it in the CRM and the payroll and all these different things. That could be a bottleneck. There's a lot of kinds of things like that could be bottleneck. Inventory, are they entering it in the financial system and in inventory manager? What happens when they place an order? Does it automatically take it out of inventory? Does it predict when they're going to run out of something so they can have enough lead time to order it? So we're looking at the way that maybe the systems don't talk to each other. Other thing I'm looking for is actual process bottleneck. So it may not even be a technical issue. It may be, and I've actually solved those kind of problems just by talking about them in the very first meeting. I mean, I've come out of meetings where they've actually been a little bit more efficient. For example, they've been sending these documents back and forth from department to department, and each one of these people that are involved in this thinks the other guy needs a document, and sometimes it turns out that it's a hard document to get and put together and nobody's using it. Stuff like that. So there's the actual just people process problems that we're talking about too, because we're not going to just go in and automate a bad process. We want to fix the process and then automate a good process, and that's where you get a lot of the benefit. Another thing I'm looking for is like how they're managing. Are they managing by email? I'm sure you've seen this a lot, and if you're a small company, you're probably doing it because you don't have other tools to use. But you've got this big stack of email, and your email is kind of your to-do list. And people are sending inside the company, sending emails back and forth. Okay, I've done this, now it's your turn to do that. And there's no one place to go to see kind of where something is in the process, who's got to do what. It's kind of a mess. They're managing out of spreadsheets. Everybody's got a copy of this spreadsheet. Which one is the right one? Everybody's kind of tracking and putting status in a spreadsheet. You'll see that a whole lot. The third thing I'm looking for is errors caused by the process. So first of all, the cost of errors could be very expensive, right? The thing about the cost of errors is you don't know how much it costs. You do know that it costs you, and sometimes you know that it's expensive, but you don't know if it's real. You can't put a number on it, but it's a problem. So I'm looking for places in the process that we can eliminate errors by automation, by changing the process, by a combination of those two things. I'm looking at like the ability to manage the business. Is there a place to go to answer questions like, what in my business is the most profitable? What's the least profitable? What should I probably not do? Is it profitable, by a type of client or a type of service or product? And you should be able to just pull that and see like historical, and you should be able to see like right now, you should be able to see by salesperson, by region, and most companies, unless they've had some kind of level of automation, can't do that. And that can be very costly to a business to make bad decisions. All right, so at the end of that meeting, there's a couple of things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for, is there something we can do to help? And then, we'll propose what that is. And we'll make a business proposal, meaning this isn't just a list of all the things that we found that we can do. Here's a shorter list of things that if you invest in this, you're going to get that money back this year, and then it'll be profit from then on. And then we can go to other things that maybe have fallen off that shorter list. So it's always kind of looking out for their cash flow, their growth, and what's going to give the best value. The other thing is, what can they do right now, like as of the end of that meeting? And that was an example was the process was a bad process. Change the process, fix the process. Maybe some of the software you're using is good software to use, just configure it a little different. There's things that I can suggest while I'm there at that first meeting, and often do. Often at the end of that first meeting, there's already a little bit of relief, even if there's a good bit to do. So, there's two ways to look at it. What is the cost of not automating, right? And that's one of those things, like the cost of errors. It costs you, and maybe it costs you a lot. You just don't know what that number is. So that's an important thing to consider. But the only thing you can measure really is what it's going to do for you in terms of improvements. So when we're proposing a solution, we're lowering costs, and the cost could be cost of errors, could be headcount. And headcount could mean that you don't need that many people, or you do need those people, but now they can actually produce more because the bottleneck was you didn't have the throughput. So either one of those ways, you can be better. You can serve your customers better if you're automated. Instead of somebody gets a request in your organization, and then they send emails out to get the pieces they need from everybody else, and then somebody puts it together and sends it out. Often the customer can self-serve, whether you want it to look like that or not. So in other words, you might still want that contact where the customer talks to a person and says, I need this or that. But that person then can just go to the system and generate it right away. Or you can self-serve. So those are a couple of ways to do it. The morale, when you're constantly fighting a system and you're constantly just fighting to keep your head above water, I mean that wears on people after a while. And people are cynical and they hate their jobs, and it's a huge difference when the details of their job get easy and what they get to use is their expertise instead of their rolled up sleeves and sweat. That makes a huge difference. When you do have employee turnover, if you have a system in place, you have much less of a training burden to bring somebody in, because the system helps a new person just like it helps a seasoned person get through the job. So it's always a cue for that person to know what to do next. And then you can hire staff in a lot of cases that are less skilled to do certain things, because now the system will take care of the business intelligence part, and you have somebody that you can hire that doesn't have to know as much as they'd have to know like before you automate it. So one of the things that you can look for, right? So when you're talking to your clients, when you're talking to other people you can ask some kind of easy questions depending on kind of what your relationship is with that client, right? So if you are doing something financially with staffing, you can talk about training. What does it take to train a new hire? If it's like, oh man, we don't even hire people because it takes months. Well, that's a great indicator, right? Most importantly, what your least profitable service or product is. That's a great question. And depending on kind of the relationship, that might be a normal question. And it's very telltale. The answer is very telltale. If you're in technology, what kind of software tools do you guys use? And really what you're looking for is not a list of software tools. You're looking for complaints about how the stuff doesn't work together and this doesn't work right, and we've had this guy that built this thing and it's never worked right, and that's what you're listening for there. And then the marketing tools. How to how does your customers interact with your business? Can they self-serve at all? Or is it always they're calling in and they have to kind of marshal a bunch of people together just to be able to answer questions? Another thing, just observation, right? If you see people kind of running around with folders, that's telltale, right? You got a lot of paper going around when probably it doesn't need to be paper. You got stacks of paper on people's desks. You've got people. Everybody's got a spreadsheet open on their monitor. Those kind of things are indicators that they're trying to do it the hard way. They don't have something set up to really support what they're doing.